Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Tonight I am updating with some finished books. So if you've been following along, or even if you haven't, I suppose, a couple nights ago I posted a reading relays stack that I've been working my way through, and I've actually finished a couple. So yay, I get to, show off what I finished and what I've replaced them with in my stacks. And I'm sipping tea because with the cold weather comes all the tickly throats and everything else. So blueberry green tea in this case. Very nice. Alright, so the first one of my stack of finished books, Wastelands, short story collection edited by John Joseph Adams about post-apocalyptic settings. So in each one of these stories, the end of the world has come in some way or another, and people are dealing with it. It is amazing how similar these stories all end up being. One of the kind of tropes that bugs me, that always bugs me, and I don't know if it's just me, in a lot of these stories, they assume that humanity is going to devolve back into a very patriarchal and violent society. The violence I can see, but okay, women nowadays are not raised the way women were 100 years ago. So if you have a society in which, so one of these stories, there was a war that basically shut down the United States as we knew it after the Gulf War. So if all the men got drafted to go to war, and so most of the towns and cities are populated by women, children, and old people, a lot of women know how to do technology. They really do. And a lot of women know how to do all the other trades and professions too. And so some of the way this society collapses doesn't make sense, because they ended up falling into the same pattern as a lot of other ones where the world, had this cataclysm or whatever that left women without their manly counterparts to do everything for them, and society collapsed. I've read a few of those that were really dated, where you have to just accept that this was from a while back and they didn't think the way we do, or something like that. But if it's something where society has collapsed after the Gulf War, the fact that the men have all been drafted to war does not mean that there's nobody that can fix things back home. The radios should still work because there are women that do radio. The cars should still work because there are women that know how to fix cars. Just a lot of that just didn't make any sense. Anyway, so that was my gripe. There are always a few in every collection where they do that. All of them assume that humanity is going to be, horrible and violent, and that gets old after a while. I'm sure that there are going to be horrible, violent stories wherever a human society has collapsed. That seems to be the way we do things. But I'm not convinced that that's the way it's going to be forevermore afterwards, because that's not the way humans do things. It's violent and horrible until some new system of order springs up, and they might even totally forget that the previous one existed. But there is a new system of order and you go back to some form of peacetime, and it's not always horrible. That's kind of the history of humanity. So, no, but they were good stories, and most of them don't go on long enough that they really get into whether or not, there's any hope. Although a lot of them are kind of hinting that there's no hope for humanity in the future. Anyway, so there's that. Good collection, nice variety of stories overall, nice variety of reasons why society has collapsed. That was nice. I finished Death of a Dyer by Eleanor Coons. This one is a murder mystery set after the American War for Independence. So in this book, Reese has been hired by, I think, his former best friend's mother. I'm pretty sure that the mother is the one that calls up this guy and says, hey, you need to come and investigate Nate's death. So he shows up and is trying to sort out why his friend would have been murdered, because from the last time he knew his friend, he was a nice guy and everybody should like him, except that everybody doesn't necessarily like him before. He was kind of a bully, and then Reese and Nate didn't really talk to each other after they were young men because they had a falling out. And so they don't really know each other. And so Reese is not really investigating a friend. He's investigating a stranger he used to know. It takes him a while to discover this, which was a bit annoying. I like to think I know at least something about my friends I haven't seen for 20 years. But if I suddenly was called in to investigate their death, I would know that I haven't seen them for 20 years and they might have changed. So that was a little odd. He also is really stuck on whether he can even consider proposing to Lydia, who has come back with him from his previous case in which her husband died. And she's in love with him and he's in love with her, and she's a former Shaker and is recovering in some ways from whatever trauma was in the first book, which I don't have the first book, so I'm missing that backstory to this one. And over the course of this book, we find out a lot more about Nate and a lot more about sort of what was going on in the town while Reese was gone. I was bored for a lot of this book. Not enough to put it down, but enough that it took me forever to finish. So I think that would be my biggest criticism. By halfway through the book, in most murder mysteries, I want to feel like, okay, they don't know who did it, but they need to feel like they made some progress. Like they at least know kind of the shape of the case they're investigating or something. By the middle of this one, I didn't have that. I had the sense that the case was going nowhere, and if anything, Reese was unable to accept the fact that he didn't know Nate enough to be able to assume anything. And that was it. And it took a long time to resolve all that to get to where there could be any progress. So, I don't know if it was pacing exactly or the emphasis on personal development versus plot development. I'm not sure. It was still good. It just wasn't, a 5-star murder mystery for me. But if you like historical fiction murder mysteries, it was a good one. And I haven't read that many that are set just after the American War for Independence. That was pretty good. I finished 2 Doctor Who books. Shroud of Sorrow. This is one with Matt Smith's Doctor and Clara as the companion, which was one of the weaker points in this book. The fact that I still had to look at the cover every so often to remind myself of which Doctor and which companion I was reading about, because it wasn't really clear from the way the characters were written. I've read quite a few Doctor Who books in which just the way they talk, the way they act, just little things, you know who they are. You don't need to go back and look at the picture to remind yourself of which Doctor we're reading about. Same thing for Clara. I kept forgetting whether it was Clara or Amy until the name was mentioned again, because it wasn't really well enough written for me to know which character I was reading, just by the way they act and the way they talk. So, that aside, it was a fun plot. It involves a wormhole and a weird sort of kind of psychic alien, I guess, and clowns, lots of clowns, and a bigger on the inside clown car. So that was fun. That's Shroud of Sorrow, if anyone wants to read about clowns and a clown car and Doctor Who and a big bad psychic alien. Alright, and then Fear of the Dark. This one is the 5th Doctor. I haven't watched a lot of the 5th Doctor's episodes. This is one that when I was watching them on YouTube, there weren't a lot of them on there. They go through phases where for a while there's a bunch of them that you can find, and then they get pulled off, and a while later, all of a sudden there's a lot of episodes again. But this one, not so much. So I didn't have as many episodes to compare it to. But still, I kind of got a better sense of which Doctor I was reading. I got an idea of his personality a lot more. The companions in this one are Tegan and Nyssa. Nyssa is more psychically sensitive, or emotionally sensitive, which is important because the alien involved is affecting her in a way that it's not affecting Tegan. And it reminds me a lot of the story from, I think it might be one of Tennant's Doctor's episodes. Maybe. Yeah. They're on the planet. Oh, yes, because Rose is there. With the Ood. Yes. And the dinner Ood. She's trying to figure out if it's a male Ood or a female Ood, if it's a dinner lady Ood. Anyway, that episode where they're on a planet that's in a stable orbit around a black hole, and it turns out to have a devil sort of creature in the middle of the planet. This one similarly is a group of people that are trying to stake a mining claim on a moon, I think. A moon or a planet, doesn't really matter. But there's an entity that's living in this planet. And they don't actually resolve very well what it is. Any more than they did in the more recent Doctor Who episode. So, very similar sort of story, but this one was done earlier. And it's definitely good. Nice, solid sci-fi. And, yeah. A little bit different if you're used to the more modern Doctor Who's. But still definitely the same sort of pacing and storytelling. Yeah. And then Conan the Adventurer. Okay, Conan is not sexist, exactly. He's a barbarian. I have to keep reminding myself, he is a barbarian. Of course. And anyway, it's not really Conan that says things that make female readers or male readers sensitive to these things grumble. It's the author himself that is being datedly sexist, maybe? I don't know. But it comes out a lot more in this book than in some. Just little comments about the reason that a female character is not able to go on any longer is because she's a weak woman or something. Okay, never mind. Conan himself does seem to respect the women that he interacts with. He gets nearly killed by several women that he interacts with, so he kind of knows that they can handle weapons. He gets rescued by women a lot, so he's fine with interacting with women on an equal footing, and it doesn't. It's not Conan's fault that women fall for him. He actually says that in this one. It's not his fault that this other woman fell in love with him, because she just couldn't help it, because he's just that great. So that was kind of funny. I like the other version of these stories a little bit better, for these ones in particular. I remember them kind of gelling a little bit more. This one felt like just, I'm pretty sure it was published serially. I don't know for sure. But it feels like the sort of thing that started out as just individual stories published in periodicals that were then squished together into a book. Because it doesn't really hang together as much of a story. Although it does still follow a progression where at the end of it, he's ready to move on to the next book. I'm pretty sure I've read them slightly out of order, because I do vaguely remember what happens next. And I don't think it's from that omnibus collection. Anyway, those are the books I finished. And so since I finished 5, I need to add in 5 more to keep my stack going. So I'm adding back in Billy the Kid. This is a biography by Michael Wallace. I've already started it for Nonfiction November, but the bookmark's not very far in. Another Nonfiction November pick that I never finished. 20 Years of Growing, a memoir by Maurice O'Sullivan, who grew up on a little island off the coast of Ireland. This one's good. And I did get further along in it, but not very far. Then I've got The Eyre Affair, which I'm kind of getting into, but not very well. I don't know if it's confusing or if it's just not clicking. I haven't really decided yet. I'm working on The House of the Dead. I've already finished Poor Folk for the Rating Project Gutenberg. I think that's what it was for last month. But I need to finish House of the Dead, so this book will be done. That one might be as an audiobook, though. And then I added in The Taste of Magic by Andre Norton and Jean Rabe. So those will be the books I'm working on, plus the ones that I already held up from my reading relays. Let's see if I can get them here. Still have Islanders by Christopher Priest. Seeing Science. This one's very pretty. Lots of good pictures. This one may be the next one I finish. History of Witchcraft. I have, I think, 2 chapters left. There is an index at the end of this one, so I am actually really close to done with that one. Luminous Heart of Jonah S. It's a murder mystery. Watchman by Ian Rankin. And Metazoa by Peter Godfrey Smith. Oh, and The Complete Stories of Muriel Spark. So, that will be what I'm working on. Since we have snow and it's gross outside, I imagine I'll be doing more reading over the next 24 hours. So, I might have a new update video by tomorrow with some more books I finished. Realistically, it might be a couple days. We'll see. It is the 14th, though. So, as of 45 minutes ago, it's the end of the second week of December. So, yeah, I guess this kind of doubles as what I read for the second week of December. Anyway, hopefully you guys are having a good reading week and having lots of successes. And I will check in with you guys hopefully soonish with some more finished books. Bye, guys!